Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. Hi guys, it's me again, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and welcome to the show. Today is going to be such a great day because we are talking about when nobody listens to you. Does that sound familiar? I mean, there is nothing more frustrating as a dentist, as a leader, than feeling like nobody is actually listening to you. I mean, along the way, maybe you've already come to terms with the fact that patients don't listen to you. Maybe you already feel that way, and maybe you've already just accepted that fact, which is infuriating enough, right? There's nothing that's more frustrating than knowing exactly what a patient needs to do, how they can help themselves, and they just won't listen. They just won't implement what you've learned and studied and have so much evidence for. It can be so infuriating. And what used to drive me even crazier in the office is when the team didn't listen to me, right? When you feel like you have the insight, you know what could make things better, what could make things more efficient, what could make things more profitable. And yet it's so frustrating when nobody seems to be listening or paying attention or acknowledging or implementing. You sometimes feel like you're saying the same thing over and over and over again. And that feeling of defeat, it feels hopeless, right? Like, in fact, isn't that even the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result. Feeling like absolutely no one is listening to you. I remember that same feeling of this kind of Groundhog Day over and over again, saying the same thing. Nobody's listening. I felt like every meeting we had, I'd be saying the same thing. I'd be talking to people about the same things, and yet nothing seemed to be shifting or changing. And I was speaking to a client last week who was saying the same thing. She wasn't in a leadership position, but she was an associate in her dental practice. And she said, I keep speaking up to the administration. She happens to be in a DSO. And she said, but no one will listen to me. I keep getting the assistant who is new and has never been trained on these really difficult second molar cases where I really need someone who knows what she's doing. Otherwise, I'm being set up for failure. Or I keep asking for longer appointment times for second molar endo. And I keep getting defeated every time the front desk schedules these really short appointments. Sometimes it feels like the people around you don't have the same level of commitment or the same level of excellence. They just want to rush through. They just want to get their jobs done. Sometimes it feels like nobody else cares about the quality of care. Am I right? That you're the only one in the office that actually cares about giving your patient a good experience. Like, that's a really good value of yours. And nobody else is listening to that importance. Sometimes it feels like everyone else is on a different page. And sometimes it feels like your voice just doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you say something or you say it a different way or you say it to a new person. It just doesn't matter. And it makes so much sense. I want to just validate the way you feel right now if this is at all resonating with you. It makes so much sense that you would feel frustrated, overwhelmed. The overwhelm piece comes in because often you're the one left picking up the pieces, doing the extra work, or doing the redundant work that you can see so clearly there's such an easier way, a more efficient way to be done. Work starts to feel like a burden, doesn't it? Going into work starts feeling like a heaviness. Just driving in, you can feel the weight of it on your shoulders. You start dreading going in. You probably went into dentistry with a certain amount of excitement, a certain level of curiosity and opportunity and potential. And now you're beginning to find all the problems with it. Maybe even feeling like you were tricked. You thought there was this great world in dentistry. You thought there was great opportunity. There were so many dentists who seemed so happy. But man, you're feeling like nobody listens. So what's the point? How are you ever going to make your dreams come true if nobody's supporting you? And it makes sense because dentistry is not a solo profession. It takes a team. It requires a team of cohesion from all components. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you need the people who are scheduling the appointments to be on the same page so that you're scheduling the correct length of appointments. Or if you're the owner of the practice, the little bit of a buffer to protect your lunch hour, to protect your administrative hours, to protect your scheduled hours, right? It requires a cohesiveness of the team. It requires communication. It requires teamwork. That's what's always made dentistry so beautiful. But if your voice doesn't matter, how are you supposed to do this without being a part of the team? And sometimes it can feel like there are favorites within the team, or these cliques, these little friendships that form where they look out for each other and they're supporting each other in the way that you wish you could feel supported. And you just can't find a way to break into that team, break into that friendship. And maybe a part of you doesn't want to, because maybe it's not aligned with your values. Maybe that's not the way you want to create friendships. Maybe that's not the way you want to lead your team. But all you know right now is that it's turned into a frustration and a bore, and that you have all these great ideas. You know what you need. You know what your patients need. You know what the system needs. But it's turned into the same old thing every single day, and it's exhausting, and now maybe you're beginning to dread it. The truth is, maybe this has happened for you several times, and maybe you've just started giving up. Maybe not on dentistry yet, but there's a thought that maybe dentistry is not the way to go. But you've definitely started giving up on the vision, started giving up on the dream. You've definitely stopped asking for what you want because it seems futile. You've definitely been burned so many times that you just don't want to keep setting yourself up for the disappointment. I mean, why would anyone keep dreaming, keep hoping that it would be different the next time if you get the same result over and over again? But what you're also noticing is it's beginning to suck the life from you, because you thought maybe you could compartmentalize not asking for what you need, not believing in something bigger or greater or more exciting, not having something to look forward to just work. If I could just go to work, put my nose to the grindstone, just get the work done, and not feel like I need anything more out of this, if not feel like I need to feel fulfilled or excited or enthusiastic. If I could just do work at work, do the thing I'm supposed to do, and leave at the end of the day, that's how I'm going to get through this. But what you've noticed is that's really difficult, because at the end of the day, you're not feeling fulfilled. And what you maybe have started noticing is you can't just compartmentalize to work. You start noticing that in other areas of your life, the joy, the passion, the excitement, the opportunity is also beginning to wane. It's beginning to lose its luster. So you start to tell yourself, well, it's just during the week, right? Just the weekdays, just the work days. I'm just going to know that those are shit days. I'm just going to let it be that way. And I'm really going to be just kind of excited for the weekends. Let this just be a job. I'm just going to get a paycheck out of it. It pays really well. I'm going to use it for getting away and escaping and experiencing my life and my joy in other ways on vacations. And yet, when you go on vacations, it's hard to muster that excitement again. Maybe it lasts for a small amount of time, but you can't hold on to it when you get back from vacation. Maybe the problem really isn't that nobody's listening to you in dentistry. Maybe it's that you started to believe that nobody's listening to you at all. And maybe you stopped listening to yourself. I mean, is that what's really happening here? And isn't it time something shifted for you? Have you given up on you? Have you given up on paying attention to when things don't feel good and you know you should speak up? Take action. Take inspired action on your own desires. Have you started giving up on your desires and told yourself it's not possible? I'm just not even going to try. I've got too much to do. I'm too tired. I'm too exhausted. I'm trapped. My financial situation makes it so that I don't have a choice. Have you stopped listening to you? And I'm just wondering, as you're listening to this episode, what does listening to yourself look like? How do we create that shift? Once you've identified, oh, wow, I've been thinking no one is listening to me. I've been thinking my accountant's not listening to me. My kids aren't listening to me. My team's not listening to me. Wait a minute. Could it be that I'm not listening to me? And maybe there's just this little voice inside your head that's going, oh, wait a minute. This is a whole perspective shift. I've stopped listening to me. I've stopped even trying. I've just been putting one foot in front of the other, telling myself there's no point. You can almost see yourself as two different people in that moment. Wait a minute, I'm not listening to me. So maybe the first step is being the person who listens to you. Being that person. Being the person who says, I'm not willing to tolerate this feeling anymore. I'm not willing to tolerate the excuses anymore that I've created for myself. I've witnessed them in other people, but man, am I doing the same thing? I'm not willing to listen to those excuses anymore. It's time something changed. And I've been doing the same thing over and over and over again, hoping that it would feel different. I've been doing the same thing over and over again, hoping that someone outside of me will suddenly recognize, will suddenly listen. And maybe this episode, you listening to this specific episode, has brought you here for a reason. Maybe this is the wake-up call you need to start listening to you. So what is it that you're not taking action on? What is it that you've given up on? What is that call inside of you that you've quietened, deafened to, that you've just decided it's useless, I'm not even going to try? And maybe right now you can start to see a change, a shift, a possibility for something new just by paying attention. Maybe you've actually been listening to this podcast for a while now. Maybe this isn't the first time you've fallen on this podcast. Maybe you've been listening to several of these episodes and there's something inside of you this whole time that has said, I'm going to reach out. Because that is what I do, my friend. I help dentists who are leading beautiful dreams, who have great desires to feel good, who once had that spark in their lives, that spark for life, for adventure, for growing beautiful things, for building big, beautiful careers, for impacting people in need, people in pain, for feeling excellent at what they do, for feeling like good leaders, who now just feel numb and has started noticing that numbing out happening in all parts of their lives. It doesn't matter, that new car, eventually the new car smell wears off and the new car becomes your old car. It's not sustainable for long-term happiness. And maybe you've been telling yourself for a while now, I should reach out to Tarryn, I should reach out to Tarryn. And yet there's a voice inside your head that says, what's the point? I invite you to pay attention when that little crazy 8 behavior pattern sets in. When you stop listening to you, when you stop listening to the voice inside your own head that says, we need to make a change here. And it's not a change outside of me, because the next job is going to be the same way. The next profession is going to be the same way. The next team I work with, the next office manager I hire, the next accountant I hire, I keep finding the same pattern. Something needs to shift inside of me. Let that be your wake-up call this morning. Whenever you're listening to this episode, you're brought here for a reason, and there is nothing broken or wrong about you. All we need to do is tap into you, listening to you, being your own advocate, taking radical responsibility for your own happiness, And that, my friend, is when the world starts to shift. Because the moment you take accountability for yourself, people around you start to listen. People around you start to pay attention. That's when big, exciting things can happen. I'm going to leave for you in the show notes a link to getting in touch with me. Very simple, easy 15-minute call can happen in the middle of your day just to find out if working with me is the right thing for you. And what I'd love for you to do as you're going throughout your day is pay attention to where you quiet yourself, to where you stop listening to you, and let that be your indicator light of change. Because the only way to do great things in this world is to pay attention to how you feel. And when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Business of Happiness podcast. If this episode brought you new perspective and value, I invite you to subscribe so that you catch all upcoming episodes and leave us a review. And if you know of a friend or colleague who could benefit from this perspective, share this episode with them and empower their day. For more information about the Business of Happiness and the Radical Happiness for Practitioners course, find me on www.thebizofhappiness.com. See you there.